and privilege to stand before you this evening, celebrating this 50th anniversary of the Educational Opportunity Fund. I want to acknowledge some of the greatness that's in this room already. Been the privilege of being able to meet so many familiar faces. To the university administrators, I want to thank you for helping us navigate this rites of passage called college, to help us transition from boys and girls to young men and women, able to use our talents and skills to impact this world. To my mentors, I want to thank you for your encouragement, your steadfastness, and willingness to guide me and others with your sagely wisdom through the ups and downs of life. You counsel and support us. Your counseling and support is the core of this program, and without it, this program wouldn't exist. To my fellow alumni, and particularly the iconic class of 1990.
Yep.
Shout out to y'all. I love you. You're my big brothers and sisters. You've helped me in so many ways. You keep me accountable, keep me grounded, and I thank you for that. We've done so much together, and there's so much more to do. To the current students of all disciplines, I thank you for your commitment and your presence today. I thank you for the work that you're doing. Let nothing stop you becoming all that you can be. And to the faculty, who gave me a tough time getting through here, I thank you for your instruction. I thank you for challenging me, because through that process, you were able to mold my character and intellect. You know, my story starts as an EOFer. Let me just say, I didn't thank my wife. You're going to thank my wife. All that she does. Through the business ventures, through the long nights, she has been the rock who stays with me. I love you and thank you. So as I was saying, I'm a proud EOF alumni. And what I did want to share with you is that to me this story is so very personal. And it's personal for a reason. So my family is an immigrant family. We came from Panama. And so my father, in 1962, decided that he wanted to, well, let me just say that my father was at the top of his class in high school. So he was a top 15 student, 4.2 GPA. He was in the yearbook as the person that was most likely to succeed. But he grew up in Panama, and he wanted to find a way to get an engineering degree. So he applied to Purdue University. And in his application to Purdue University, he was hoping that maybe I could get some financial aid to do it. And he wasn't even sure if he would get in. So in that time, 1962, you write your application and you eventually get a letter, and you got a letter of acceptance. We welcome you to the class of 1963 as an engineering student, and we can give you a partial scholarship to come here. He gave it to my grandfather, and he showed him the bill, and he said, son, I can't do it. He says, I can't get you on a plane to even get you to the United States. So he couldn't accept the scholarship. He couldn't go to school because he didn't have access. He didn't have access to an opportunity that would change his life. And he tried painstakingly all of his life. And I stand here as his hope, as his dream fulfilled. Because he didn't make it there, but I did. And it was because of EOF. EOF got me there. And so, the time that I spend with you is really to celebrate the 50 years of an institution built on the foundation that every person is significant and deserves equal opportunity to pursue the dreams and achieve greatness. For many of us, EOF is not one thing, it's many things. It's a community committed to its members and selfless in the service of each other. It's a feeling. I'm never on a journey alone, and that we collectively are here to help each other out. It's a responsibility that we are here as our brothers and sisters' keeper. It's a spirit that lends itself confidence in you before you actually achieve anything. It's an understanding that you're a part of a whole and that you're committed to the preservation and growth of this community. We don't live on this world as an island. Rather, we're human beings interconnected with one another. We might describe this philosophy that binds this community together as Ubuntu. Ubuntu, an African concept or philosophy that suggests that I am because we are. In my student organization, the Minority Engineering Educational Task, the mighty Rutgers chapter of the National Society of Black Engineers, we repeat the saying every meeting to remind us of the sustaining principle. The great civil rights activist and humanitarian Nelson Mandela describes the philosophy in this way. We are all bound together in ways that can be invisible to the eye. That there's a oneness to humanity. That we achieve ourselves by sharing ourselves with others and caring for those around us. Simply said, that this means that it's not all about you. It's about us. So for the next few moments, I'd like to speak to you the topic Ubuntu, the legacy and the light of EOF. Legacy is something we inherit from the past and contribute to the future. In planting seeds in a garden, it's planting seeds in a garden that you will never see grow. Like a baton in a relay race, every individual will have the opportunity to participate in legacy building. The question is, what will you do when the baton gets handed to you? In the wake of the Newark riots in 1967, a group of courageous Rutgers Newark students answered the call. At that time, and even now, Black communities are challenged with a host of problems. Lack of proper housing, unemployment, inadequate education, health issues, and police harassment. These issues are a byproduct of decades of systemic racism and discrimination. This reality had a direct impact on higher education for Black students that were at Rutgers University. At that time, at Rutgers Newark, it boosted an undergraduate population of nearly 3,200 students, of which 130 were Black, less than 4%. We're a city that Rutgers resided in had 60% African Americans in its city. A group of bold and brilliant first-generation college students created the Rutgers Newark Black Organization of Students, known as BOSS. They demanded changes at Rutgers, and they submitted a list of changes to then the Vice President of Rutgers, Malcolm Talbot. The demands included enrolling more minority students and hiring minority professors. They were frustrated by the administration's continued rejection of their demands, and they marched on the campus into the main classroom at 6:30 a.m. They kicked out the security guard and chained up the doors. They stocked with food and water, and nearly 24 protesters said they will remain in Conklin Hall until the demands were heard. Dubbed as the Conklin Hall Takeover, these students unfurled a banner from the rooftop and began to declare that this was Liberation Hall. While the protesters and counter-protesters rallied and clashed outside of Conklin Hall, Rutgers administrators began negotiating with BOSS, talking to them about what they could do together. President Mason Gross resisted calls to be able to push out the protesters. As negotiations continued, students on Rutgers, New Brunswick, Camden, and campuses also joined in to be able to show their support and solidarity. In the early morning hours, the Rutgers president agreed to increase Black enrollment and institute other changes to make the state university more welcoming to minority students. On February 1967, the students end their 72-hour occupation. A few days later, Rutgers Newark professors vote 95-40 to reject the agreement. The officials decided or were suggesting that the changes would lower admission standards. Other faculty were upset because they weren't just consulted. BOSS leaders held a news conference and said, if you don't respond to our demands, we're going to shut it down again. The State Board of Education urged Rutgers and other state colleges to amend the admission standards, and an 8-hour meeting with the Board of Governors established a new pioneering program to admit economically disadvantaged high school students in Newark, New Brunswick, and Camden. In November 1967, the aftermath of the Conklin takeover and discussions with the chancellor created a memorandum that went throughout the state. The Lilly Commission created a report with the governor offering recommendations, and out of that report came the Educational Opportunity Fund. It was established by legislation by Tom Kane in 1968. I wanted to take the time to review our history because it sets the pace for our future. We figuratively stand on the shoulders of student protesters who are willing to fight for people they would never know. They risked it all for us. They just got into school. They could have been locked, jailed, and kicked out. They were legacy builders, agitators, trailblazers whose bold action created opportunity for the next generation of professionals. In addition to the public policy and legislative legacy, EOF changed the game in providing comprehensive student support services, focused on providing innovative practices for recruiting, retaining, and graduating students. Said differently, landmark legislation alone would not change things. We had to be committed to doing things differently. And that differently was how we engaged student support services. For us at the School of Engineering, our shepherds, our trailblazers, were Dean Donald Brown, Dean Eileen Dean Fred Burnett. They employed non-traditional recruiting strategies to connect with students across the country. One of my best friends and EOF alumni, Dallas Grundy, who's sitting in the audience, tells the story of Don Brown coming all the way to his high school in Lawnside, New Jersey, just to recruit 2 students, him being one of them. Don made it his personal commitment to demystify the admissions process and the financial aid process. He helped admissions evaluate students beyond the board scores to consider their potential and their possibilities. But not only did he and other counselors in the audience get us in, they provided us the necessary support to make us get through. The EOF summer program set the tone for my entire experience at Rutgers University. Through that experience, I met lifelong friends from all walks of life, from as north as Teaneck and as south as Atco, New Jersey. Now, we were different classes, Eileen said. We rolled in with a little different swagger. Now, we rolled in deep, we rolled in thick. You knew the class of 1990, they were coming. You know, we had that hip-hop basketball feel to us in everything that we did. We repelled the idea of being a pocket protector engineer. We were the first at the party and the last to leave. We didn't want to be that nerdy one. We wanted to be able to do it differently. We supported each other that summer, even through the hard times, and I remember a specific conversation with my mom at a payphone describing my experience. Yes, I said payphone. So I called my mom up, and Dallas remembers, you know, I think there was a payphone somewhere, I think it was Silver's, one of those apartments, and we ran out there, and he called up, I called up my mom, I was like, hey, Mom. And she was like, hey, baby, how you doing? I'm so proud you at school and college. I know you're doing the very best. I'm like, Mom, I'm failing. I'm failing. Yo, this calculus and this physics is killing me. It is eating me up alive. So I'm with my brother, Jason Harley, who's in the audience as well. And Jay was, you know, he was our go-to guy because he was brilliant. And so he would sit and explain and re-explain why the acceleration is 0 at the top of the curve, and I couldn't get it. And so through all of this, we learned that we were a support system to each other. And we ended up being able to rely on each other. We had a surrogate mother at the time who was an EOF counselor, so she could only be about 2 or 3 years older than us. Yeah. She seemed like a mom because she was always kind of bossing us around, telling us what to do. But Miss Monique Connor, loved her to death, was able to get me to the then Math and Science Learning Center and said, you know, son, Larry, you need to go to the Math and Science, MSLC, you need to sit down and see if you can get a tutor and help you out. But she also connected me to this student-run organization called Meet Rutgers Network. This is Ubuntu at its best. courageously creating institutions that address the real needs of people, flattening the barriers to opportunity for all, and unleashing the power of the human potential. This spirit is the driving force of EOF. But in addition to the legacy of EOF, we celebrate today the light. Much light radiates from as light radiates from the sun, so does light radiate from EOF. For 50 years, this program shines light into the lives of people that may be otherwise overlooked. Look around you. This room is full of countless professionals with skill sets and experiences and abilities that are shaping and influencing this state, this country, and this world. You are the light that emanates from the program. Your example and testimony speak volume to the power of EOF. Today, we celebrate you. So from physics, we know that we can manipulate light in several ways. Let's focus on two of those right now. Now, light can be reflected and light can be refracted. So if light is reflected, it hits an object and it kind of bounces off of you. In refracting light, we can bend the light, as if you would see light going through water. Light goes through water and it bends. Let me give you an example that describes how EOF is light. So while sitting in Don Brown's couch, which I stated multiple times, with a solemn face, I slowly picked up my head and shared with Don my latest dilemma. During my last and final year at Rutgers in 1995, I shared with them that I had just come back from a wraparound line because there's no online registration. You got to get in line, fill out your form, get to the registrar. She'll tell you, or he'll tell you that you filled it out wrong. You go back to the line, and you do it all over again.
Yeah, you don't know nothing about that.
And so I realized when I got to the line and got to the head of the line, the first two the classes that I need to graduate, I'm ready to graduate. This is 5 years now. 5 years, ready to graduate. Engineering, economics, heat transfer are being offered at the same time, at the same period, and on the same day. How am I going to tell my daddy that I need another semester? So while the registrar said calmly, well, son, you just need to come back, re-register for next year, and just do the classes in another semester. I'm like, come on, you don't know what that is. There's no way I'm getting back home and getting another year of money. We don't have any money. We've run out. So I went back to Don, and I said, I've got to figure out what's going on. So Don, then in his plaid tie, khaki pants, looked at me over his wide brimmed glasses and said, Sport?
Sport? Yeah.
We got a problem. But the bigger question is, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to register for both classes at the same time. He was like, Larry, you sure? I was like, Don, I gotta get out. And there's no more money. This is it. He said, okay, all right, Sport. Come up with a plan, come back to me, and let's figure it out. So I run back to my dorm. I see Dallas. Yo, Dad. Same class, econ and heat transfer, same time, same place. Dude, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I gotta take both classes at the same time. He was like, yo, that ain't no problem. He's like, half them teachers weren't teaching you in the first place, man. You gonna figure it out. So why don't you do this? I'm taking econ. I'll take the notes for you. We'll meet after class. We'll go through it. I'll tell you when the tests are. You take the test. You sit in heat. That's a class that you're gonna need. That's my major class. I can't miss heat. And let's see what we can do. I said, all right, that sounds like a plan. Hey Don. I think we got an idea. So Dallas is gonna be in econ, I'm gonna be in heat. I'm gonna get his notes, and then I'm gonna figure out what we're doing at the end, and I'm gonna take the exam, and what do you think? Sport. Tough plan. But if you think you can do it, I got your back. I was like, Don, for real? He was like, yeah. He's all right, so let me tell you how you gotta talk to Dean Burnett. So broke it down for me. Went to Dean Burnett, sold him the story. I didn't think he was gonna buy it. And then he turns around in his desk, opens up his drawer, pulls out a waiver notice, signs the waiver. He said, good luck, son. Hope you can do it. And it was from that moment that I realized that the light was being shined on me. That Dallas and Don and Dean Bernath and my parents were giving me all that they got. They were giving me their time, their commitment, and even their confidence.
Yeah.
That I could end up taking 2 classes at one time, passing and graduating. And to God be the glory. I passed that class and walked down that aisle with my brothers and sisters from engineering. So for me, they were that light. They were that reflecting light. But we also can be refracted light. Light that bends and changes intensity when it goes through you. Through my EOF experience, I met some of my most remarkable people in my life. There was a moment in the early 90s around economic empowerment and self-determination. Hip-hop was so good back in the early 1990s. It was conscious, it was party music, we just enjoyed it, we loved it. But it also had a message. And the message for us was create your own, do your own. And for me, it was upperclassmen like Wayne Abbott and Malik Khanna that established what I saw was the first examples of student-run businesses on campus. Wayne had Aware Products. He used to use the Digital Media Lab as a place to build. At the time, we used to use Photoshop to create silk screens so that he could then print conscious labels on hats and shirts. You can do anything you can imagine. And it was from that experience that I was able to begin to say that there are different opportunities. I wasn't going to just be an engineer. I could be an entrepreneur at the same time while getting my degree. So in 1993, Dallas and I, 2 EOF students, joined forces with Randall Pinkett, who turned out to be the first Black Rhodes Scholar at Rutgers University. Dr. Jeffrey Robinson, who turns out to be now a university professor teaching business at the Rutgers Business School. Aldwin Porter, who's an executive at Merck Incorporated. And we created Mind, Body, and Soul Enterprises. Yeah. Mind, Body, and Soul Enterprises was a company that had 2 divisions. Now, I already told you that I like to go to the parties. So we had a retail sales because there's no internet. There's no Sam Goody, there's no Best Buy, so you can't get music anyway, so we decided to create a mail order service. So you could come and say, I want the new Big Daddy Kane, or I want the new, Puff Daddy, or I want the new Biggie Small, whatever it is that you wanted. We take the order on our bike, fill it out, send it in, mail would come back to us, and we deliver the music CDs. But in addition to the retail sales, we decided to build out another side of the business, which was educational services. Now, through Meet Rutgers Nesby, we had the opportunity to speak through volunteer opportunities, through high school outreach. And so people like Dallas and myself and Jason, all the others would go out and we would do presentations to high school students, teaching them, explaining to them what it would take to be engineers. But through that, we didn't realize you could get that people would actually pay you to speak. So from that experience and from that high school work, we developed our company, MBS Education Services and Training. In 1994, as seniors now in college, we were providing workshops and seminars to NSBE, the regional conference, the national conference, and then we solidified our first major contract with the National Action Council for Minorities in Engineering, the NACME program. We did that conference in Connecticut in 1994. So we continued MBS for 9 years thereafter. The brotherhood that we established here remained intact. We reshaped our business years later and turned that business into the business that we run today, which is BCT Partners. I'm proud to say that we've been in business now for 19 years with the same guys that were in EOF from those years back. That company that started in the Hill Center, and started in the MSLC, and started using resources that is here, now has grown to 75 employees and is multi-million dollars in size, really focused on bringing insight to diverse people that lead to equity. I share this story not to tout, but to describe what's possible with the light. What's possible when you create new opportunities for the next generation, and our responsibility to do that. Our responsibility is to create new stones, new opportunities, new places, new spaces. If we are not the next trailblazers, then we haven't done our job. Now that class of 1968 blazed the trail so we can be here. The question is, what are we going to do for the next class in 50 years so that they'll come back and say that we did something different? So we continue that business, and we believe that there was a great opportunity for us. So in closing today, we celebrate the legacy and the light of EOF. We are thankful for its contributions to Rutgers and its students. And we see this 50 years as a critical milestone, not just a critical milestone, but an opportunity for us to continue this work. This should not be our destination. There's more work to be done. With the writing of this speech and the conversation we're having today, we know that a new wave of forces are going to be putting pressure on this institution called EOF right now. We know that what's happening in the Supreme Court will have ripple effects on affirmative action and set-aside programs. And we should be ready for the fight. Politically, we need to get involved. It's no more sitting on the sidelines. We've got to be able to call to action and be able to support funding for EOF. We've got to ensure that we get elected representatives that believe in affirmative action, because this country has not healed from its racial injustice. The past is too deep. You're not going to fix 400 years in 50 years. No. It takes time, and it takes programs that allow us to remain accountable. Economically, we must continue to give charitably to Rutgers University. We've got to show our commitment with our money. We've got to do that through annual giving campaigns, and we've got to do that by giving directly into these student organizations. These student organizations should not be fighting for resources. They shouldn't be fighting for ways to be able to fund programs. We should, as alumni, be able to not just talk about that I'm Rutgers proud, but be able to show it with our dollar. We've got to leverage our power and influence to support scholarships and internships and opportunities for the next generation. Use your position as executives. Use your position as directors and as vice presidents, as CEOs, as legislators, to be able to break down doors for this next generation. Lastly, we must socially commit our time and talents to the current EOF students. We've got to speak to them and mentor them. We know we're having challenges, particularly with young black men and their ability to be able to stay in and finish the program. We've got to stand up and rise. We've got to begin to be that next generation of trailblazers. We have the baton now. It's a relay race. And now it's time for us to race and pay it forward. Because we're not meant to see through each other, but see each other through. I thank you for your time and commitment to EOF. I love you guys. I appreciate it.